Hello, welcome back to Aetheral Space 11.29. I'll curse you to death. We are back.
It sounds like something, it reminds me of that old anime meme that's like, I'll kill you so hard you die to death. Do you remember that?
I don't know this one.
Oh, hang on. Let me see if I can send it to you on Discord real quick. I'll kill you so hard you'll die to death. It's an old one. I don't think it has a GIF. I'll have to look it up later. But yeah, we're back with Aetheral Space, and let's get into it. You don't need a fucking recap. You know what happened. How dare you! The second contender cackled. Paradise Karen grinned to herself as she seized Del Ced by the back of the head, grinding their face into the ground below as she ran. Oh my god, I'm literally imagining the anime. It's like that over the top where they're pressing them down and like crouched down running and like the ground's kicking up and leaving a trail behind in the earth. Paradise, oh man, I fucking love that we're on the same wavelength because we're both incredible weebs. The idiot's ruined arms flapped uselessly at their sides as they were brutalized, and Paradise couldn't help but laugh with glee. Everything was going brilliantly. She was fulfilling her anger in quite an invigorating way by destroying this brat, and the portion of the force she'd left aboard the Tartarus was in the process of bringing the heir back into her custody. By the time this entire idiotic operation was done with, she'd be back at the top of the food chain, one step below supreme. The humiliation delivered upon her here would be nothing, not even a memory, for there would be no living witnesses to it. Paradise released Del Ced from her grip as the warrior kicked towards her stomach, allowing their body to skid to a halt. She'd half expected Del Ced to be unconscious, but they seemed to be sturdier than they looked. They rose from the ground, glaring at her, face covered in gashes and bruises, their eyes bloodshot. As they pulled their mouth away from the ground, though, the ground came with it, forming a gargantuan stone sword the size of a train carriage, the elongated handle gripped between Jakob's teeth. Paradise leapt up as they swung... The fucking Zorro.
Yeah.
Paradise leapt up as they swung the massive blade, the air pressure alone blasting through the area and sending molten flesh flying in every direction. As she reached the ceiling, Paradise pushed against it with her hands, sending herself hurtling back down towards the exposed blade. Red aether shone around her knee as she dropped down onto the sword, shattering it, rubble striking the walls. Jakob Del Ced fell to their knees again opposite her, clearly exhausted by that maneuver. Paradise smiled. That last gasp had been somewhat impressive, but it was pretty much over anyway. No need to get her own hands dirty any further. Her face returning to its usual pristine serenity, Paradise called out to her foe. "Any last words?" she said, as countless tendrils loomed above. "I'll be willing to remember them for you." Jakob Del Ced just glared for a moment longer before spitting blood onto the ground. Paradise's eye twitched, and the mass of wooden blades and claws began to creep closer towards her opponent. "Fine!" Paradise snarled. "Just die, then." The Forest of Sin lunged in for the kill. As the Forest of Sin restrained her, Akalima wept bitter tears. She kicked and she punched the wooden mass, but it was far too strong and durable to be affected. It didn't even notice she was attacking. Countless tiny tendrils of wood wrapped around her limbs and torso, holding her firmly in place. This was it. She was just a puppet again, a piece to be passed along to the next ambitious player. No, she wasn't a puppet again. She'd always been a puppet, hadn't she? Since the day she was born, since even before that. Even if she survived this. Even if she somehow saw tomorrow. All that was waiting for her there was more this. An endless line of people waiting to exploit her. The life of the supreme heir. As the branches flooded over her, Akalima screamed, holding one arm up against the mass. For the first time, she could feel the chains binding her. For the first time, she understood the place she'd been given in this world. For the first time, she felt a true and unrelenting hatred. Purple aether sparked. Fuck! So hold on. Not only did she have the same aether color as Bruno, right? Or is it different purples?
Bruno has violet.
Well, no, I thought Serena had violet and he had purple.
Oh, yeah,
that's how you wrote it
right,
last
yes.
chapter. But her core is the exact opposite of her dad's.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting. Overwhelming love versus unrelenting hatred. That's cool. I thought it was going to be like fatherly love from Musashi or something, but this is way better. Oh, that's so good. I have questions about Aether, by the way, for your fun fact. So remind me. Just remind me I have an Aether question, because I'll forget it otherwise. Strictly speaking, a person does not need to have Aether to concoct an Aether ability. Really, an Aether ability is just a specialized way of using Aether. A way of utilizing its principles to achieve a desired effect. You told me techniques had to be refined and worked on.
Well, yeah, but like,
because
you can come up with one, is what it's saying.
Right, but like, don't you have to test it and like understand how? Like, Drogon was figuring out how Aether worked with his cube. So long as you understand how those principles work, you can come up with an ability, even if you can't use it. In some cases, okay, it's even possible for this to happen subconsciously. I'll allow it. I'm using this. I'm holding you to this going forward. And when we look back on the Aetheral Space 20-year anniversary, I'll be holding you to this in Arc 1. It's possible for suppressed resentment and anger to boil in the back of your brain, slowly putting something together without you being consciously aware of it. It's possible for you to reach out with that hand of yours and say, "Curse hand!" In the instant before the branches would have struck true, they suddenly stopped. Serena, who'd braced herself for the end, looked around uncertainly. All around her, the tendrils and protrusions of the forest of sin had turned still, like a paused videograph. Oh my god, did she just do the fucking hand from Ocarina of Time?
I don't know what that is.
You know, the fucking trap hand?
I don't know about that.
Did she just use hold person?
Perhaps we'll continue and see what has happened.
Okay. My theory, before I read on, I'm guessing, is the ability is like when it touches you, you can't move, like you're frozen. Paralysis. Bruno? Serena asked. What's going on? Paradise Karen moaned. Darn! Serena had been so preoccupied with the enemy around her that she'd neglected the enemy in front of her. She looked back to the second contender, ready to leap back into the fight, and her eyes widened in shock. Paradise blinked. 7 sinners on the edge of the horizon, the house of the little children, where they toss themselves into the meat grinder, into the world, into the meat grinder, into the world, bite your teeth into a rabbit's head, feel soft brains slide down your throat, a hell only a mother could love, wounds bleeding vomit onto the bathroom floor, a razor wire crawling through your brain, acid poured over your face, over your body, over your skin, you run your tongue over a nest of blades, and... Paradise blinked, Paradise blinked, Paradise blinked, Paradise blinked, Paradise blinked. Does your core affect your abilities?
Not necessarily.
Okay. Blood ran down Paradise Karen's face from her eyes and mouth, a sinister makeup dribbling across her skin. One half of her face had fallen slack, and hollow gasps could be heard from her open red mouth. Huge and unsightly veins protruding all across her body, blood leaking from some of them as well, as though the volume of liquid inside was too much for her skin. What's up, Puff? No, Karen babbled incoherently, gasping for breath. As Serena watched, horrified, Karen clawed at her throat, leaving deep gouges there with sharp fingernails. Her eyes rolled back up into her head. Her red aether mingled with a strange purple shade, raged chaotically around her as she thrashed and wailed and finally fell back onto the ground, twitching. Serena was just about to step forward to deliver the finishing blow when the forest of sin began to writhe around her as well. As quickly as it had appeared on Elysian fields, the forest flooded back towards its master, with such speed and ferocity that Serena could do nothing but brace herself as it rushed past her. So that's another question I had. If you die with an Aether ability manifested, does it unmanifest?
It depends. Sometimes the Aether Awakening would sort of maintain that ability. Sometimes it depends on the ability, basically.
So is this being sucked back into her because she's dying?
Well, perhaps we'll see.
Hell passed her by in an instant. Birds tweeted. Winds rustled. The light of a clear sky coming down. It was like the planet itself was breathing a sigh of relief. When Serena took her arm away from her face, she saw that the forest had not completely disappeared, but rather coalesced. Oh, this is some Narnia shit. I kind of fuck with it. There, where the second contender had been standing, there was a massive... I would take out that second there. Just was a massive black tree stretching up towards the sky. Some kind of cocoon, maybe. A way for Karen to defend against whatever attack had just struck her? Serena couldn't say. All she could do was breathe a sigh of relief. That was one contender down. Yo, Karen. Walking by the tree. The forest of sin dissipated around Aklyma, hurriedly collapsing into red aether as though it were running away from her. She was left lying on the floor, her breath heavy, her arm still extended where she grabbed at her attacker. Deep, purple aether still coursed around her hand. Aklyma looked at her aether dumbfounded. For a single stupid second, she was slightly disappointed. She'd hoped her aether would be golden like her father's. Then, though, she just broke out into a grin and laughed. By using her ability, her cursed hand, she'd come to understand it a little, come to understand what her subconscious had put together. It was like a virus, an aether virus. She'd uploaded the virus to Paradise Karen's aether through touching the forest of sin, let it follow the power back to the source, and let it wreak havoc. Aklyma didn't know exactly what had happened to Karen's body, but it would have been severe. I'm going to use the subconscious thing to make characters with fuckloads of aether techniques, and you can't stop me.
Okay.
It would be a... Sorry. Just, don't give a fuck at all. It would be a wonder if she could still function as a human being. Her hand had stopped shaking. Aklyma clenched it into a victorious fist. The fist of the supremacy. No! No! You're on the wrong side of history! She wasn't useless anymore. She could win. Her grin widened, and she was suddenly full of confidence. She could help. You've read Worm, right?
Yeah.
You know what Panacea does to Victoria?
Yeah.
That's the vibe I'm getting kinda right now. I don't think Aklyma should have this ability. She's such a nice girl. Tanhoney. She's gonna do evil acts with this that she will regret.
Filthy deeds at a reasonable price.
Tanhoney, no! Now arriving, floor 262. Please note, said the intercom's cool, synthesized voice. The hull of the body is currently under top-level info security measures. All transmissions leaving the hull are subject to screening procedures. All physical materials leaving the hull are subject to a search at your nearest security station. Breaches of info security may incur a criminal charge with a possibility of prison time. Please cover your ears and await further instructions. Thank you. Doors now opening. With that, the elevator doors smoothly slid open as promised. Minister Grisha Moores, the Serpent of Pesh, straightened his tie as he strode out of the elevator and down the sleek white hallway, passing countless doors on either side. He was a youthful-looking man, with tan skin and white hair tied back into a ponytail. Oh no, Musashi copy? The black suit he was wearing was made from the skin of his namesake. Wait, who's Grisha again?
He's a new guy, we don't know Grisha. He's a minister.
The skin of his namesake?
Yeah, the serpent.
Oh, the Serpent of Pesh. I thought he was wearing a person. And light reflected off it oddly, making it seem as though it might even be wet to the touch. His smart shoes... Nice. What do smart shoes do?
They're smart. They look smart.
Do they say things to you? Like, good morning.
They're not like devices. I mean, they're shoes that look smart.
Oh! Well, in a sci-fi setting, you can never be sure. His smart shoes clicked against the floor as he walked, and his grey eyes flicked to regard the aides and pages bustling through the hallway around him. It was no surprise that things were in a panic. There was a chance they might have a new Supreme by the time the day was out, after all, or they might have no Supreme at all. Whenever something changed in the Supremacy, it often meant months of work in the body to make it functional. Someone had to make sure the trains ran on time, after all, despite the train's best efforts. Is this by any chance inspired by me saying, the thing about Downpour about characters that made me believe the world runs?
Well, this was always going to be happening.
Alright, sweet. Moores reached the door he was looking for, nondescript, just like any of the temporary offices on this floor, and tapped in his code on the panel next to it. The second the door slid open, he ducked inside, tapping the button on the other side that closed the door once more. Oh, what was his voice again?
I don't remember the exact voice you did for him.
You loved it, though.
I did.
Was it something like this?
Maybe.
I don't remember. Do you love it?
I like it.
If not, it's not. That wasn't it then. Oh, this is pissing me off. Whatever. I'm not going to stall you. You took your time. Ion Stenhouse, the body special envoy, drawled as he looked up from his script. Traffic bad? The meeting room wasn't much to speak of. A table and a few chairs, with a water dispenser built into the wall. But the decor wasn't what Moores was concerned with. The unit on top of the table, a bulky signal jammer, was of much more interest. Morris scanned it with his eyes, making sure it was functional. It wouldn't do for unexpected leaks to get out. Only the expected ones were welcome here. Morris shrugged off his suit jacket, draping it over the back of a chair before sitting down himself. His eyes flicked over to Stenhouse. Voice?
He's a calm, sort of cool guy. He's like a little bit sly as well. He's like this, maybe.
Good to see we have the traitor among us, he said lightly, steepling his fingers on the table before him. I will say, are you sure you want to keep among us as your line?
Absolutely.
Especially, okay.
Yeah, I had to hold myself back from not using the word imposter in that sentence, I'll have you know.
How much of this meeting will you leak to the wise men? I love wise men capitalized. Stenhouse wiggled his hand. See, that's your name for your fucking council. When I was like, give me a council name, there you go. Wise men. That's dope. Stenhouse wiggled his hand. Just the basics. Is it Miser?
Miser, yeah.
Miser Morris. Unless there are specific things you'd like me to leak. Morris smiled thinly. We'll get to that. The three wise men. The first, second, and third ministers of the body. On paper, the body existed to facilitate the desires of the sitting supreme. But the current supreme had little interest in governance, and so he'd granted the three wise men unprecedented power to decide policy themselves. These days they had spies everywhere, fingers in every pie. Little happened without their approval. As far as Morris saw it, Aether users could swing their swords and shoot their guns all day long. But this world really belonged to the bureaucrats. He leaned back in his chair. Who's talking, Morris?
Yeah.
For now, I'm more concerned about the Supreme. Chizuru, any word from your special officers? Minister Chizuru Un flickered into existence in the chair across from Morris. She was a seemingly young woman with bright pink hair and eyes, not to mention a poofy dress that was more frill than fabric. No, I know exactly how her voice sounds. She flashed him a peace sign. Hi, hi! Then again, that was only what she seemed to look like. Chizuru's true form rested beside her chair, inside a small tank. She was an unfortunate skirnt that looked like some kind of embryonic seahorse. Jesus Christ! How did she get elected? I don't mean that in an ableist way, but I mean, like, isn't the supremacy all about strength and stuff?
Different kinds of
How did they elect the seahorse embryo skirts? Capable of surviving only in a very specific liquid solution. She could only communicate with others using a hologram interface, but with that false face she'd built up a monolithic career in the entertainment industry before transitioning into politics.
Hatsune Miku.
That's Hatsune Miku. That's literally what I was gonna like. I can't do a Miku voice because I'm not a Vocaloid, but I was literally imagining like Miku. An eccentric career path for an eccentric woman. Well, Stenhouse prompted. Her hologram twirled imaginary hair around an imaginary finger. Can you give me the chapter where he was introduced so I can watch it later for his voice?
It was back in Art 10. I think it was Bringing the Clowns, it was called.
10 point something. I'll have to find
I think it might have been 10.3.
Well, from what my officers tell me, she said, the Tartarus is dead in the water. The special officers are split between the ship and the chaos on the planet below. The chain of command has collapsed, but there was never much of one anyway. Not looking good. Dope. Is she doing the tee with the hands on the... I love her. She's my new favorite bureaucrat. I would fucking vote for her and simp for her. Without question. I would hand over the keys to the political kingdom to her. Morris scratched behind his ear. I see. And the Supreme himself? Down on the planet. He's probably fighting Esmeralda already. And so we get to the million statter question. By the way, how much is a statter worth compared to $1?
So statter is close to sort of like, it's like 100 statter would be $1 basically.
Oh no! We fucked it up in the roleplay. We thought it was the other way around. We thought a statter was $10. so we made we made like $250 on a bounty. No! Alright, I'll retcon it later.
Just make it so you got scammed.
No, it's so dumb. Who's going to win? He looked to his two companions. That's what we're thinking, right? So it's basically Yen.
Yeah.
Personally, Ion said, sucking in air and saliva through his filed-down teeth, I don't see the Supreme losing. He leveled the playing field before he went dormant. If someone had come along with a similar level of strength, I think we'd have heard of them, no? Chizuru put a finger to her cheek. If Esmeralda had UAP backing, too, maybe he's got some of the 10 Nebula there? No, Morse said firmly. The UAP doesn't have anything to do with this. At least not on a governmental level. The last thing they'd want is the Supreme dead. Chizuru blinked, looking at him as if he'd gone crazy. Are you sure? Morse took a pen from the table, twirling it idly between his fingers as he spoke. Think about it. More than anything, the current Supreme is a lazy one. I mean, he doesn't do anything. The only reason the war between us and them has stayed cold is because there's nothing driving us from above. Imagine if the next Supreme was some kind of warmonger. No. They'll want our guy to remain in power as long as possible. Ion snapped his fingers. Might be too late for that, though, Miser Morse. With a frown on his face, Morse clicked the pen. Exactly. There's a non-zero chance that the Supreme is dead already. We don't want a revolutionary like Esmeralda to become the next Supreme. If he didn't tear things apart, the civil wars would. How about that woman? Stenhouse asked, leaning forward. Can you get her to do something? Excuse me. Oh, wait, what the fuck? Morris cast his longtime partner an unamused glance. You know I can't tell the shepherdess what to do. The best I can manage is an occasional phone call. She'll do what's best for the supremacy, even if it's not what's best for us. She's not an ally, and even if she was, she'd be the most unreliable kind. She's a person?! I thought she was a ghost, a tail, a specter! And she's there already! What would you do if she turned to the camera and was like, Gemini World? Just to fuck with the audience. I am thou art I. Okay, now back to the story. Ion sighed, rubbing his thumbs over his temples. His stress was understandable, but by no means unique. Morse had no doubt that conversations very similar to this were taking place all over the body. Their civilian government... Aren't they the big three ministers, though?
Not these guys. The three wise
I thought...
people above them.
Oh, but they were... Sorry, I got confused. Their civilian government lent itself to intense factionalism, small groups of ministers and other officials allying together for scraps of additional power. Even if you didn't seek power for yourself, the fact that each controlled planet earned a minister only a single vote meant that they had to band together just to get anything done. How many planets are there?
A lot.
Hundreds? Thousands? Hundreds of thousands?
Hundreds. Probably more than thousands, yeah, like hundreds of thousands.
Jesus Christ.
So you have to have, like, big voting blocks.
God, gerrymandering planets.
Yeah.
Do the planets get to vote on who their ministers are?
Yeah.
Interesting. Grisha Moors was seen as something of a rising star in the body, but Pesh was still a single planet. How do they even tally the votes for, like, who the wise men get to be? Or is it like a Supreme Court-ass
yeah,
for
that's
life
what
thing?
It is. It's a position for life.
With a single insignificant vote. If the world wouldn't give you a hammer, sometimes you had no choice but to use the knife. Oh, that's fucking hard. That goes hard, dude.
His grind set?
Put that on a shirt. What?
Grisha Moore's grind set?
If the world wouldn't give you a hammer, sometimes you had no choice but to use the knife.
Okay,
The fucking Sigma music.
He walks out the elevator like a Sigma male.
You sound like you've still got a plan, Chizuru said. How do we play this? We do nothing, Morse smiled. I've already done it. I've dispatched the Pesh defense fleet just outside the Elysian Field system. The first sign of any ship taking off from the planet, and they're blasting it out of the sky. Even if Esmeralda becomes supreme, he won't live long enough to let anyone know. Chizuru raised her eyebrows. Sorry, but I don't see that happening. The Elysian Fields incident already has over 1 billion spins on Sphere. You used it! Yeah, you are reading! He used our... Guys, if you don't know, we came up with social media on the roleplay server. That's the name we came up with. So, some of the special officers dispatched are pretty big on there. They've been posting videos, pictures, damn near live updates. That tracks influencers, special officers.
Yeah.
What's up, guys? Today I'm going to be killing this innocent tribe of people because they tested me.
Horrors of war.
People are like, please don't kill me. He's like, you didn't pay your taxes on time.
Comments whether I should spur this guy.
Death! Life or death at Paul.
Very funny.
Oh my god, that's so funny. Please write us an influencer special officer. If you don't, I will. The eyes of the galaxy are on this thing. All the better. We blast Esmeralda out of the sky and everyone will immediately know. I love spins, too, for views. That's cute. Because it's like spinning a sphere. Aw, Tan, hold on. Can you share that in the roleplay server while I keep running?
Well, there's a spoiler.
That's good. Are you kidding me?
Well, no, that was like... We'll do it later.
Okay. Some of the special officers dispatched barely remembered. Sorry. We blast Esmeralda out of the sky and everyone will immediately know. His supremeship becomes a technicality, barely remembered. And we have ourselves a dawn contest. Moore said simply. From there, it's just a matter of finding a candidate we can support. Commissioner Caesar. Does he know? Maybe. Or Dorothy Iro if we're looking for a heroine. Dramaturgically, mythologically. Well, Chizuru admitted, you've certainly put some thought into this, but the Supreme gave super explicit orders that only the Tartarus was to go to Elysian Fields. It's that whole fair fight sort of thing. But if he finds out you're sending an entire fleet there, against his orders, you're super dead. Delicately, carefully, Moores laid out the pen on the table before him, adjusting the angle until it was a perfect and reassuring straight line. As he spoke, he looked down at it rather than his colleagues, as though there was some kind of consciousness within the object he was trying to make contact with. Pesha's known for our casinos, he said softly. Gambling dens, thunderbolt arenas. I love lore! Sorry, I literally feel like Will Smith in all the lore bits. Whatever shape they take. But we gamble. That's what we do. We understand it's a gamble. This whole thing, life or death. Every day you go to bed without getting struck by lightning, or having a heart attack, or, I don't know, spontaneous combustion. That's you winning the bet. But the stakes are garbage in a game like that. The only thing you win is the right to keep playing. He looked back up, and his eyes were dark as pits. I have the fury of my own momentum. I say we play for real. All in. Any objections? The room was silent. Well, he grinned. Let's discuss our next Supreme, then. Tan, I'm so sorry I kept interrupting with my fucking nerdgasms. I hope I didn't ruin the intensity. I need to tell you, though, I remembered my question. So I need to run some things by you before I can properly ask my question. Okay. So let's say your core is sadness. Your Aether doesn't just flare up every time you get kind of sad,
you have to
right?
consciously be trying to use Aether when you're sad.
Right. So my question is, with people who haven't discovered their core, do you have to feel the emotion intensely? Like, do you have to feel like a worm level of like the trauma unlock of like your emotion deeply, or is just feeling that emotion like a little bit harder than normal enough to unlock?
That'll be normal enough, as long as you're attempting to use Aether and you yeah.
So a Kalima situation, she wasn't really thinking about Aether, was she?
She was
just like
trying to defend herself, trying to attack, trying to like.
Is there a word for unlocking your Aether for the first time? Because my instinct would be awakening, but that's already like used.
I think it's just sort of unlocking.
Unlocking. So like she'd never felt intense hatred before?
Not singular hatred, no.
Damn. So the Supreme had probably felt love before, but not the way he had when he unlocked his. Oh, and I had a last question. So you mentioned color comes from consciousness, and I had this idea I was talking to Blair about, like, maybe because they grew up together, their conscious was similar, and they have similar colors. But my question is it literally like random RNG lotto, or is it like, because you mentioned colors don't change throughout someone's life for Aether. So, like, is it just locked into the color at the moment you awaken, or is the color literally like an RNG lottery?
It's related to something about you. It's not like a mood ring. It's not that clear cut, but there are like certain relations, like different shades and things like that.
Is there a possibility of you ever giving us like an Aether color chart of like what this color Aether says about you as a person?
It's from the perspective of the Aether, basically, so it would not be like a human understanding of it.
And Aether is something from another dimension that has its own sort of consciousness.
Like, it's a sponge for consciousness, but there is some like principles behind it that it would perceive things in that way.
Is the Prince Aether itself?
And why would I tell you that?
I think I just realized the Prince is Aether itself. Guys, that's my theory. I think the Prince is... If Tan cuts this off at the end of the video, I was right.
You're free to believe what you want.
Guys, the prince is pure Aether. He's Aether incarnate. He's the Prince of Aether.
Well, the prince,
I figured it
the
out.
name the prince is a like a literary reference, but
To what?
to Machiavelli.
I thought something like that. Because, like, even though he keeps talking about world peace, Drogon was, like, put off by the prince, right?
Yeah, Codgetons don't like the prince
Why not?
because he can sense like something's weird, like, but they can't quite figure it out, so it pisses them off.
Okay, so it's not, like, inherently, like, foreshadowing he's suspicious. It's just Cogitans can't read people who have the prince, and it weirds them out.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that is kind of fun. Oh, because you mentioned the way Awakening works is, like, Aether floods into you and, like, takes over your body instead of you. Like, it overflows your consciousness.
Well, yeah. It's like, as I say, like, Aether is also a sponge for consciousness, so the more you use it, the more it, like, remembers you, basically, and if Aether Awakening is, like, after a very intense use of Aether, the Aether just keeps going by itself, thinking it's you.
I love Aetheral Space so much! Oh, I'm having a nerdgasm, dude. I'm so excited. I love learning more about this universe! Okay. I should stop recording now. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Bye!
Bye.